Promised I'm going to do that show where we're going to pretend as if Elon finally gives me an audience. Now, I'm going to put this up, on X. I'll put it up on YouTube as always. I'll probably put it up in as a text, posting as well. Elon, if you're listening, you don't have to give me the interview. Here's the questions. Just answer them. Put this up on X. Put my name on there so that I make sure that I see them. I probably see them anyway because I see almost everything that happens with Tesla on X. But here's my 10 questions. And one of them is not mine. One of them was sent in by somebody that follows the channel. Okay, questions for Elon Musk. Number one, do you still believe that Semi will ramp to 50,000 in 2026? Right now, it looks like I would think that they would start producing something by mid-year. They could be having a fairly decent number of semis coming off the line by the end of the year. And so, 50,000 might really be in the cards for 2026. But I'd like to know, is that still the goal? Will that factory be capable of more than 50,000? It's a big factory. So is that ultimately going to do 100,000, 200,000, 300? I mean, what is your goal for that factory? If all goes well, how many heavy trucks would you expect Tesla to build in 2030? Will you build semis in China? They call them heavy trucks there, or somewhere else in Asia? Will you build some in Europe? What is your ultimate goal? We know that Brian Wang thinks you should do all 4 million. That by the time you put full self-driving on there, 100% autonomous driving on there, and the quality of the electric truck that you're going to build, that everybody will want this truck and nobody else's truck. I'm going to be satisfied with 1 million a year, but maybe that's not even close. Maybe you have no inclination to get to 1 million a year. The largest maker in the world, which is Mercedes, what do they call it? I forget that their truck division. Daimler, they do 500,000. So are you going to shoot for their numbers? Are you going to shoot to do twice as many? 500,000 would be 1/8 of all the trucks that are made each year. That would be lower than your normal. So 1 million would be 25%. I think that's the right number, but that would be my first question. Okay, number two, given the current ramp, how many Cybertrucks do you think you'll be able to build per year in Austin? Do you think that for 2025, do you think there's enough market to get to whatever that number is? Now, I'm thinking maybe it's 250,000 next year. Is that the number? Is it possible to make more than that in Austin? Do you expect you might need more capacity somewhere else other than Austin, or maybe even in China or in Europe? I mean, apparently you're going to start selling them in China. So do you have thoughts that you would eventually build them in China? So that's my questions on Cybertruck right now. Number three, you talked about a full terawatt of Megapacks, a full terawatt hour of Megapacks. Well, we might be at 10% of that by early 2026, 100 gigawatts hours. Is it still your goal to get to 1 full terawatt? Was that goal going to be 2030? Is that when you thought you would get there? If that was your goal, was 2030, is that still the goal? Or if not, if that's still your goal, when do you think we get to a full terawatt? Or is it going to be more now because the demand is so great? 4680s is number four. 4680s are apparently doing what you're starting to really do well, I think, with 4680s at this point. You said you would build 500 gigawatt hours in Reno, in addition to the 200 gigawatt hours in Texas, and then another 100, I think, in Berlin, and maybe 100 in China. Is that still where you're expecting to go? Is that still the plan? Are those plans planning to be soon? Could you give us some kind of a timeline on that? And then a question, while we're on the 4680s, let's just go ahead to question number 10 here from Obert Humphreys. He goes by Copa Pilot. No, yeah, Copa Pilot 1, COPA Pilot 1. All right, he says, ask Elon if the dry anode process is working. So are the 4680s that are being made in Austin right now having the benefit of the dry anode process as well as a dry cathode? Is everything working there the way we expected it to work? So that would be question number 10, which I'm saying early, okay? Number 5, if FSD is unsupervised in mid-2025 as planned, Will semi also have FSD unsupervised by the middle or end of 2025? Or when do you expect semi to get this capability? We know we've seen semis out there that are using LiDAR, to do some experimentation. But when will the trucks get full-on unsupervised FSD? Number 6, when will Cars and Optimus be able to have a conversation similar to HAL or other famous cars like My Mother the Car and what was the other one? My Friend Kit. From the TV and from movies. I mean, we want this conversation to be a little snarky. I know that you kind of like your LLMs to be a little snarky, funny, comedic, just like the characters that we've seen in the movies. So are we going to see that kind of a conversational capability coming up this year? Will we see it first on Grok and then eventually, a few months later coming to the cars and to the robots? Or how is all that working out? Just give us some kind of an idea, just a little timeline. I know you're probably going to say next, be 2 weeks, but maybe it'll be 4 weeks or 2 months. Number 7, I feel as though once FSD is unsupervised, the demand for Tesla vehicles of all kinds, every single Tesla vehicle will go back to completely restrained. There'll be no way you'll be able to make enough. Is that what you think is going to happen? Is that what you're basing your plans are for this year, that when FSD becomes unsupervised, you're going to need to ramp everywhere in the world to get the maximum amount of capacity out of every factory? Am I right on that, wrong on that? What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Okay, number 8. The other day, James Dalmas said that the software will be there for Optimus when the hardware is perfected. So in other words, he was saying it's the hardware that's kind of the limiting factor right now. The software will be just fine, thank you, to do lots and lots and lots of tasks, to be able to socialize, to be able to be, to be able to be in an environment. So is he right? Is it really right now at this point the hardware that's holding it up? And once you have the hardware, which you kind of talk about at the end of this year, getting a final hardware piece, is that kind of what needs to happen? And is that on time? We'd love to hear that answer. And finally, number 9, because number 10, we've already talked about it. You've talked about building 100 million Optimi a year. If all goes well in 2025, would you expect that kind of a run rate by, say, 2030? 100 million a year? Some of your fans think that would be the number. I'm kind of thinking closer to 10 million in 2030. When do you what would be your guess about this? The timing? Would you be looking? I mean, you gave us a guess of 20 million cars by 2030. You've given us a guess of 1 terawatt of megapacks. You didn't give an exact date, but that was well, you've talked about 100 million Optimi. When would that be? I mean, you're pretty darn close to starting production on these things. So by now you should be able to kind of extrapolate and give me a little bit of a close idea of where you think we might get, when you think we might get to these numbers. All right. This is Randy Kirk. That is all I have to say about all of this. Please hit the like if you haven't already done that. Hit subscribe. What's going on? I'm almost at 26,000. I also hit 10,000 followers on X today. That puts me in the upper 1% of all the, commenters, providers of nonsense. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah, upper 1% of everybody on X in terms of followers. Thank you very much if you're one of those followers there. If you're already a subscriber here, for getting me to 26,000 in just over 2 years, 2 years and a couple of weeks, a few weeks, 4 weeks, I guess, almost 25 months, probably almost exactly. Okay, thank you for that. Keep on keeping on, and money for Patreon would be wonderful. And then earlier today, I did the news just a little while ago. You might want to go back and check that out. I will put the card for the news right there, okay? If you didn't already watch it. That's tomorrow, regular day. I think did I already say that? Regular schedule tomorrow, something in the morning. Don't know what. Yeah, I got to think about that. What am I going to do in the morning? And then Monday morning, which is on Sunday night, that'll be at regular time. And then I might do a late show. These these 745 California shows are doing extremely well. So if I've got something to talk about, or if I can find Brian Wong kind of hanging out with nothing to do, I might throw him on for tomorrow night. We'll see what happens. It has been great, as always, talking to you. Never can find this button.